While those thugs were tearing into my heart and liver, my dear husband was out whining and dining with his first love for their 10-year anniversary of meeting. I tried to send him a desperate voice note via WhatsApp, but all I got back was, "Don't think this will grab my attention. I won't go home tonight, you stupid clown." Honestly, I breathed a sigh of relief when he didn't come rushing to save me. Knowing him, I'd probably have ended up worse off. Fast forward 3 days and there he was, Mr. Top Forensic Guy, analyzing evidence from a citywide murder that had everyone gossiping. He was going on and on about the victim's last moments, how she fought for her life and all. Little did he know, he was dissecting the death of his very own wife, the one he couldn't stand, yours truly. So, there I was, tossed in a pile of garbage like yesterday's news. Real classy. An old man, walking his dog, then stumbled upon the scene and the furry pet chewed a black bag like a toy. The old man figured it was some discarded meat until out popped a human leg bone. Cue the shock and horror. Pretty soon, they were uncovering more bodies all over town. It was like a nightmare come to life. The cops were all over it, setting up some special task force to crack the case. Who got called in? None other than my husband, Stephen Craig, the forensic analyst prodigy in town. He was on site, analyzing blood spatters like it was some messed up art exhibit. But even he was taken aback by the horror show. "This is some next-level brutality," he whispered, face going pale. The criminal investigation team leader, Xander Young, wanted him to break it down. And Steve was pointing out every detail like he was Sherlock Holmes. "See these stains? Looks like someone did some organ harvest. And those marks on the wall? Poor victim was awake the whole time." Xander's scratching his head, saying, "So, according to the forensic guys, our victim's a young woman under 30. I mean, who could she have ticked off to end up like this?" But Steve got a hunch. This isn't no random brutal hit. Someone's got a grudge and they're just getting started. And you know what? He was spot on. This just went to show, my husband's instincts were sharper than a scalpel. I'd love to see his face when he finally pieced it all together. So, they found a ring in the scene, the key physical evidence. Stephen picked it up all nonchalant, but Xander suddenly went quiet and whispered, "Stephen, isn't this ring a dead ringer for yours?" Stephen took a quick peek inside the ring, smooth as could be, without a single engraving. He didn't sweat it and just brushed it off. It's probably just the same style. These rings were everywhere back then, you know? Once he was done, he lingered by the scene entrance for a while, lost in his thoughts. After a bit of contemplation, he glanced down and dialed my phone. It rang for a few seconds before he quickly hung up, no second thoughts. Look at her, acting all high and mighty after throwing fits every day. Whatever she isn't picking up, it's not her, though. He was so sure of himself because our wedding ring had engravings on it. But seriously, my husband, being the forensic whiz that you are, shouldn't you know that metal engravings are the first to go? It only took me 6 months to buff out our initials. So, the forensic team was doing their thing, patching me up with like 5 or 6 people pulling all-nighters. Meanwhile, my body was just lying there on the table. I was feeling queasy at the sight of all those body parts. Xander pointed to my body and said, "Look, the head's gone, fingers too, and there's a chunk missing from the ankle." Meanwhile, Stephen was silent, probably thinking about what made those parts different. Finally, he spoke up, "So, who's the unlucky one?" Xander shook his head. "We gotta wait for the DNA results. As soon as someone files a missing person report, we'll jump on it and try to ID our mystery guest." My husband nodded, but he wasn't giving my body more than a quick glance. Was he grossed out? But to be real, this whole mess was thanks to him. Later at the meeting, Stephen threw out his wild theory. "I've been poking around recent cases and it seems like we've got a pattern here. Similar stuff's gone down in your haven. They're into some seriously twisted stuff, gutting people, bleeding them out and cutting them into pieces. Looks like someone's trying to make a statement to gain some street reputation." Xander's eyebrow shot up like he was trying to catch a fly with it. "Your haven? So, you're saying this is just like what those drug gangs pulled?" Xander asked, scratching his head. Stephen nodded and answered, "Pretty much." Xander acted fast by giving an order, "All right, let's hit up your Haven PD. Maybe they could lend a hand." After the meeting, a junior cop was practically glued to Stephen, singing his praises. "Mr. Craig, you are a legend. You figured out our next move in a flash." I was dying to chime in with the praise, wondering how Stephen would react when he cracked the case wide open. But Stephen just gave a nonchalant nod. From childhood, he had so many admirers that he got sick of hearing that kind of praise a long time ago. "Hey, Mr. Craig, hold up." The young cop suddenly stopped him, plucking a long, curly hair from Stephen's jacket. The cop smirked. "Your missus doing all right?" Stephen's tone was as cold as ice. "None of your business." He snatched the hair and shoved it in his pocket, then strode off. Left behind, the cop awkwardly rubbed his nose. I wished I could give him a pat on the back, but my hand just passed through him. I wanted to tell him, if he found my head, he'd see I had short, straight hair. That one on Stephen's shoulder belonged to Kelly. That night I got murdered, Kelly was snuggled up to my husband, leaving behind that little souvenir. I hadn't been home for 3 days and my husband hadn't even tried to find me. Last time we argued about Kelly, I crashed at my best friend's place for a few days. He just assumed I was mad again and didn't want to deal with it. Then Kelly called him, her voice trembling. "Stephen, there's supposed to be a thunderstorm tonight and I'm so scared. Can you come stay with me?" I saw Stephen's grip on his phone tighten and loosen. He said, I'm married, Kelly. It's not really convenient for me to come to your hotel. Just when I thought he might be showing some common sense, he added, but you can come to my house. She's not home. Even Kelly was surprised. Stephen, are you sure? What if she suddenly comes back? We wouldn't be able to explain ourselves. I snorted. She knew exactly what she was doing and here she was, playing the innocent. Stephen asked, what do we need to explain to her? This is my home and you're my friend. Don't worry about what she thinks. He sounded so sure of himself. Besides, she's not coming back. Kelly went quiet for a moment, then asked, how do you know? Realizing her tone might have been off, she quickly added, I mean, did Sabrina get mad at you again? Stephen nodded. Yeah, on our 10th anniversary, I told her I was going to see you. It's so frustrating. Even though we're just friends, she's always suspicious. I married her, but that's never enough for her. Unlike you, Kelly. You've put up with so much over the years and never complained. I should be apologizing to you. I almost laughed when I heard him. No sane person celebrated their 10th anniversary with their ex after getting married. And the day they celebrated was the day I died. Stephen, are you planning to celebrate your anniversary next year or mark my death? 星号星号星号. Kelly rushed over to my place and as soon as she saw Stephen, she practically leaped into his arms. Stephen, it's so dark and creepy outside, I'm freaking out. I couldn't help but roll my eyes. It's dark every night and I had never seen her this scared before. Stephen gave her a reassuring hug, patting her back gently. Don't worry, I've got you. He showed her the candles he bought, a bunch of emergency ones, clearly meant to calm her down. With these, even if the power goes out in a storm, we'll still have light, he explained. Kelly sighed, leaning against his shoulder. Stephen, you're my hero. It was getting late and Kelly needed to freshen up and hit the bed. She headed into my bathroom, shutting the door behind her and started raiding my skincare stash without a second thought. After she was done, she left everything in a mess, not bothering to put the caps back on properly. She chuckled to herself. Sabrina won't mind, she's not coming back anyway. In the mirror, I watched Kelly silently, being all transparent. Outside, thunder rumbled and when lightning struck, a figure materialized on the floor. Kelly screamed and called out for my husband. Stephen burst through the door like a hero, scooping Kelly up in his arms and shielding her. She trembled against him, muttering, isn't this kinda risky? What if your wife shows up? Stephen shrugged. I don't know. He glanced up, the lightning casting a cold glare on his face. Even if she did, she's got no right to say anything. If it weren't for her, you wouldn't leave and we wouldn't have missed out on all these years together. You don't gotta worry about her. If she kicks the bucket out there, it's no skin off my nose. All right, husband, your wish is my command. I hope you're truly as indifferent as you claim to be. At the late-night police station, the task force was still grinding away on my case. Xander called for a break and Stephen went to grab a sandwich. One of his colleagues teased him, hey, Mr. Craig, how's a married guy with a fan club of ladies like you ending up in the line for food with us single dudes? What about your wife? Didn't she come to deliver your midnight snack tonight? Stephen's face darkened and his sandwich hit the table. Why bring her up? It's gross. Xander sensed tension. Yeah, it's been a while since we saw your wife around. She used to show up with snacks whenever you pulled an all-nighter. Stephen shot him a look. All those snacks end up in your belly, don't they? Still hungry? Xander's expression turned serious. Seriously though, is your wife okay? Is she missing? Stephen snorted. Missing? If she had any backbone, I'd respect her. She's like a pesky little dog, always underfoot. It's been quiet for 2 days now, so can we stop talking about her? Standing on the sidelines, I smirked. Husband, you wouldn't have to put up with me nagging you anymore. Must be a relief. Mr. Young, we've ID'd the body. A cop barged in, waving the DNA results, but his face was twisted in an ugly mix of emotions. Xander reached for the results, but the cop hesitated. I think Mr. Craig should take a look first. Stephen looked up, puzzled. Why me? I'm not the head who is in charge to crack the case. Why show it to me? Xander glanced at the results and his expression turned serious. Your wife, have you been in touch with her lately? Yeah, she even sent me a voice message a few days back. A few days? Has it been more than 3 days? Stephen's eyes widened as realization dawned. He shot up from his seat. What are you saying?